Assalamualaikum to the lecturer. I will present the presentation. Which is okay. Solder product consists of 5 people, that is Khairul Afi bin Muhammad Asni, Muhammad Asrul bin Asmi, Izwan bin Omar, Trevor Noel, Lionel, and me, Muhammad Shazan bin Razman. Okay. We form the DEE class 3A. Okay. Next, first I will explain about the identification tool. In the solder, there should be the material in this diagram. Soldering iron, that is soldering iron, soldering stand, lead wire soldering, pincet, dispen, soldering flux, wire, duct tape, sucker, brush, sponge, cutter, desolder wick. Okay. Next, from it, let's go now the product feature in the soldering component. We must know the part and function in this table, that is soldering part, plug to pin, function, it serves as a power supply connector between the source of the exit socket outlet supply. Next, power cord, function, power conductor from source power supply to iron meter. Holder, using it constructed of insulation material, plastic or wood. Heating element, convert electricity, function, convert electricity to heat energy. Heating element, heat release, not be hot, not to be hot. Iron tip soldering as the withdraw tin, and lastly screw function and all the end of the steering iron to be removed and adjusted according to temperature suitability. Okay, that's all from me. I share this present to my next friend. Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Izwan bin Omar, number matrix 07DEE20F 2022. Next, I want to present about the characteristic of soldering. First of all, I want to talk about difference between soldering guns and soldering iron. Soldering guns typically have more power than soldering irons, from 100 to 240 watts. A soldering gun provides you with greater flexibility while working as well, capable of working in confined space, which is far more difficult with an iron. A soldering gun has a tip shaped like a loop of copper wire. Soldering guns are useful for both heavy electrical connection as well as metal work requiring a lighter touch. Soldering irons are much lighter than soldering guns, making them easier to work with, especially over long periods. A soldering iron provides flexibility in that there are wide variety of size to choose from. Small irons are best for light electronics projects, while larger irons are better for heavy duty jobs. The majority of soldering irons have many different tips that allow you to use them for various types of projects, and this variety of tips allow you to be more efficient with an iron. Unlike a soldering gun, a soldering iron doesn't need to be turned off on repeatedly because it says hot longer, which contributes to a smoother workflow. Now, I want to talk about tip solder. Soldering irons are commonly equipped with switchable tips for flexibility. Differently shaped tips allow users to fine-tune the surface area that the iron hits. Common tip shapes include conical, chisel, and beveled. Depending on your task, it may be optimal to use a specific tip shape. For example, PCB work with small solder pads is easiest with a small chisel shaped tip, and a larger tip would be necessary to connect large piece of metal or pipe. Before attempting soldering, do your due diligence and research the type of tip that will be the best for the task. Now, I want to present about temperature of soldering iron, 5 to 15 watts. This is the type of solder suitable for soldering fine cables such as components that are soldered on the surface PCB. Generally, solder with power is very small and one has a soldering needle also small. That's why this type can use for soldering components electronics with a narrow range, 15 to 30 watts. This soldering iron as well intended for fine soldering such as small or medium-sized components. For example, soldering components on PC and electronic device model construction. Usually, the solder tips of this type small in size so easy use and the price is quite economical. 30 to 60 watts. Solder in range, this electrical power is called universal soldering iron. The reason is this type of solder is often can be paired in a variety of ways solder tip of solder tip. So solder disc can be used for many different types or on the market. There is also solder disc type is supplied with settings temperature so that the temperature is not too high. 60 watts above. For heavy work such as soldering large cables, solar cells, and batteries, this type can be mainstay.
Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. My name is Khairul Afif bin Muhammad Tasni, matrix number 07 DE 20 F2024. Today I will present about the function of soldering iron or the use of soldering iron. What is soldering? Soldering is a process used for joining metal parts to form a mechanical or electrical bond. It's typically used as a low melting point metal alloy, which is melted and applied to the metal part to be joined, and this bond to the metal part and form a connection when the solder solidifies. It is different welding in the parts being joined are not melted and are usually not the same material as the solder. The importance of soldering in the electronic industry. If you using metal in building something, you will most likely need to join a piece of metal together. You can do it in different ways: by welding, soldering, or blazing. Welding tightly bonds two metals by melting or joining them together at certain points. Soldering is the process in which two or more metals are joining together using molten filler metal. The filler metal has a melting point lower than the metals to be joined. Brazing is somewhat similar and also employs filler metals. However, brazing uses filler metals that melts at higher temperature. Function of soldering: auto repair. While most metal joining performed on automobiles involve torch and more traditional welding methods, soldering iron can be useful for smaller tests. The metal used in soldering is too soft for any lasting engine repair that could be affected by the pressure built up in an engine. Circuit board. Soldering guarantees contact between two wires to stabilize electrical continuity. In addition, solder locks. The wearing down the circuit board because solder joints are typically small and common to use. A soldering pencil hook up to a power station that allows that user to control the temperature. Soldering is important for electrician because it guarantees electrical continuity. Electrical often use solder to splice wire when doing residential or commercial wiring. That also sometimes use solder to fuse wire to electrical for minimal inside electrical device or control panel.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Asrul Mizlan Resmi. Matrix 07DE20F2002. I would like to present a strength and weakness of the soldering. Firstly, the strength. Affordable price because it is much cheaper than another steam solder. Second, electric power consumption is smaller, so it saves electricity. And the last of the strength, if it broke, the repair is easy because the components are simple. Next, the weakness of the solder. Conventional solder has a vulnerability to acute short with the body, so it can cause electric shock if damaged abrasions. Second, cannot or difficult to use the mud tin or pattern that has a thick cross section. And the last of the weakness, difficult if used to install SMD type electronic components. Thank you.
Lastly is recommendation. There's two soldering that I will recommend to use. First, it's Kelat. The brand name is Kelat. It's spelled Keelat, Kelat. If you buy it, come with multimeter, soldering sucker, stand soldering, and all that you can see at the picture above. If you choose Jaden, it's come with small tools and got good quality for soldering. These boards are the best choice that I can recommend to you. Worth buying it to use for your soldering experiment and daily use. Thank you. That's all from me. Peace, Noah.